There's an Einstein quote, and the Einstein quote is, try not to become a man of success, but rather a man of value.
Welcome to the King's Code Podcast. Welcome to the King's Code Podcast. My name is Raul Villacis, and today we have a special guest. I've known this man for 5 to 6 years. You came to the boot camp, the Edge boot camp, about 6 years ago when you were going through what we call the tunnel in life. And the tunnel here at the Next Level Experience, we call it when a man is going through his trials and tribulations. And every man is going to relate to this because we all have trials and tribulations. We all face challenges, especially as an entrepreneur. Listen, if you're not facing a challenge as an entrepreneur, you're not playing big enough. But I want to hear your story. I want to hear what you're doing right now. And most important, I want to hear why you're going to do what you do. So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit to my audience that listens to this podcast and also the audience that's here in this studio. So let's give it up for the audience in the studio. Awesome. So Josh, introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, hi. So my name's Joshua Kreitzer. I'm a founder and CEO of Retail Media, which is a new thing relatively. Agency, we do e-commerce management and creative services, video production for streaming TV ads and all the rest. A brief synopsis of the story, I think, is what you wanted, right? So my background is in supply chain and getting products from wherever they're manufactured into retail, brick and mortar, and that's where it was pre-e-commerce. Then in the landscape of e-commerce, I started my career very young in the early 2000s, working at a very disruptive internet retailer, and it was a lot of fun. It was everything you picture it would be. Razor scooters in the office and all the rest. Then I went on to work for manufacturer brands to help them with the internet retail channel, which we used to call e-tail, which is a lot of fun back in that time. And looking at that, we, as salespeople and or product category managers, buyers, didn't get access to a lot of data or tools that would really help us to be able to go out there and really take market share, which is the one topic that all of my clients, which are usually manufacturer brands, love. So I got a chance to work at a company called GoPro. I'm sure every one of you has heard of that company. And while at GoPro, I got a chance to beta test Amazon's paid search platform. And for me, just all the fireworks were going off in my head. I was like, oh my gosh, Amazon's going to go toe-to-toe with Google in the landscape of search. This is going to be amazing. Finally, a retailer has monetized their search bar on their website, right? And then Forrester had come out and said something to the effect of 44%, and this was 2011, it was 33% of American adults go to Amazon to do product research before going to traditional search engines. And then leave it to Bezos, 2 years later, they beta tested with me and a handful of other people this search platform. So it was really kind of fun and exciting. About 2 years after that, I quit the day job and started an agency squarely focused on Amazon paid search ads in the very beginning. And now what we do in the landscape of retail media, a number of other retailers have started to follow suit. So Walmart's got a platform, and there's a bunch of other platforms out there that exist now too. And what's exciting is, historically, this was like a perfect landscape. If you created a product that goes on the shelf, whether it's a digital shelf or whether it was a brick and mortar shelf, retail media is for you. But where Amazon is taking it is now, and the others I guarantee you will follow suit very soon, where they're taking it now is, if you have a small business or you don't sell anything on Amazon, did you know that they are a channel of influence and they own a number of influence properties, whether that be Twitch or IMDb TV or rights and exclusive rights to Thursday Night Football, right? Amazon is now a channel of influence, not just a channel of conversion, meaning retail, right? And so we're seeing things going. eMarketer just put out the other day, 2026, it'll be a $60 billion industry, of which is about 20% of total digital advertising spend in the world. 2021, and they haven't put out the numbers just yet for 2022, but in 2021, retail media was already a $42 billion industry, and Amazon was 31 of the $42 billion, right? And we're an agency that specializes in exactly that, right? Whether it's Amazon and, as we look to the future, Walmart and Instacart and all the other platforms.
One of the things that as I'm listening to you, what's coming to me is opportunities, right? Because you were an employee in GoPro and you saw where the industry was going and you took a chance and you decided to live, I wouldn't say comfortable, but a secure job, right? Because nobody's comfortable. Even as an entrepreneur, you want to get outside your comfort zone, but you live security. And it takes balls to live security. It takes balls to actually start your own company, you start your own agency. So walk us through the mentality. But when you do podcasts, you have to be mindful that sometimes the audio doesn't pick up if you don't have this close to you.
So what was that conversation like at home? Well, the last recession as a couple, we had a rough go through all of that. So we didn't have a parachute. During that time, we lost a lot, all the way down to, losing our home during all that happened, cars and the rest. And so, we didn't have a parachute any longer. We didn't have a 401k. Our portfolio was wiped out. And so we ended up going, okay, well, to rebuild what we had, pre-last recession, I have no choice. I have to take that leap. And my wife, being as amazing as she is, jumped right on board and was like, all right, let's go. And that's kind of how the conversation went because of what we had already experienced. It wasn't, you've got the security. I went through 2 different jobs fairly quickly, and that was all due to what was happening. I kept pushing the envelope at both of those brands, GoPro included, where they're like, no, we're not going to do that. And I'm like, I have to do this. Somebody has to do this, and it needs to be me. I'm fired up about it. I'm excited about it. And I've got 20 years of this retailing experience and advertising experience. They're finally coming together. My wife was like, go. As a matter of fact, I asked my wife's parents for permission to take their daughter on the entrepreneurial journey. And her mom
looked me
in the eyes and she said, I've always thought you needed to go out on your own, right?
I thought she would say, man, I told you not to marry this guy, man. I told you.
Yeah, I know.
But you and I have a very similar story when it comes to the recession, right? The recession really tests the true entrepreneurship spirit. Because anybody can make money in a good market. I mean, a good market, anybody, if you have a half-assed product or a half-assed company, you're making money. In a recession, in a market that we're facing right now, when people are going out of business, only the strong are going to survive. Yeah. And then you and I spent this past couple of days with a bunch of guys here in the Next Level Experience on the Edge program talking about exactly that. How do we take our business to the next level? And we talked about putting ourselves outside our comfort zone. So when you came to the program, you were actually making things happen. Yeah. I mean, from the outside, you had the cars, you had the house, you had the money, and how many employees you had at that time?
When I first met you, around that time, we were only about 75 people.
Yeah, only 75. Man,
yeah.
You realize that 75, that's the 1% of the companies make it to that number, right?
Yeah.
So, but you were at a place where people were looking up to you. And I remember the conversation that you and I having saying, bro, I don't have connections with guys who are going to the next level. I need proximity. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how in the middle of your entrepreneurship journey, again, you also have the balls to say, you know what, I need help. I don't have it all figured out. I might be making millions of dollars. I may look like I am the man from the outside, but inside I need some help. So what was that conversation like?
There's 2 aspects of that. The first was, as we all go through our entrepreneurial journey and we start to grow, most of the people that we usually spent time with prior to that don't always understand us as we begin to elevate ourselves, right? And so I started to find myself having conversations with friends and family and what have you, and that they didn't understand, like, why were you at the office till 2:00? Why don't you just go to bed? Why? Are you kidding? You moved your office next to your house so you could walk to work and be there so quickly. Like, it was like quarter mile away from my houses, and I would literally do this. I would go to the office at 5 a.m., work for a few hours, go back to the house a quarter mile away, help my wife get the kids ready for school, go back to the office still before, the sun shines, right? And then come home for dinner, hang out with the family for a minute, go back to the office. And it finally got to the place where I was like sleeping on a yoga mat at one point.
You were obsessed.
It was
you were
exactly
obsessed.
That, yeah.
I mean, it takes an obsession to build something. I mean, at that point, how big did you take your company? What was your revenue on the yearly basis?
Finally got to 12 million. But where I was going with that was, it was lonely. I mean, I remember staring there's my glass window in front of my desk, and there's my little lamp, and there's me hacking away on the keyboard. And I remember one time I saw myself in the reflection, and I was just in tears because I just wanted to spend time with my family. I just missed holding my kids, and I was there. It got to the one point where I had a yoga mat and a blanket and a pillow, and that's how I did things probably for the first 3 years.
What I wanted to get, I would ask you the revenues to help the audience understand that you have to pay a price to reach that level of success.
Yeah.
$12 million in revenue doesn't happen by you working half-assed in your business.
Yep.
Or by you negotiating, well, maybe today I'm going to take the day off. Maybe today I'm not going to show up. No, you had to do whatever it took, because at that 100%. Level, you have to go all in.
Yep.
But then you realize it's not sustainable.
Yeah, that's exactly it's a perfect segue actually into my point to number 2 on why I came to the initial boot camp. It was I needed to surround myself with other CEOs who know what I don't know. The one thing we can say to ourselves is I know what I know, and I'm just going to stick to that, or I don't know what I don't know, and I better go find out how to get that information. And when I watched your videos and all the rest, I was like, I got to meet this guy. And I need to be in the proximity of the other people that I know he associates with, because I can learn. It's always be learning is something that I live by.
And
right?
one thing I love about you, because we're having almost weekly calls for 5 years, right?
Yeah.
And I see you growth, and I see you negotiating in your minds, should I sell my company? Should I buy more companies? Should I do this? And one of the things that I appreciate about you is that you are a believer.
Yeah.
You believe that God is guiding you.
Yep.
You believe that you've been called to lead people. Give us an insight of what your manifesto is, because you share with us your core beliefs. What's your manifesto? What do you stand for in your company?
I think the core tenet, and many of you who are in thinking about getting into a services industry, but our core tenet is centered around one concept. It's we exist to help people. And then I tacked on to that statement in our manifesto, our audience is everyone we meet. And my intention behind that was that I wanted my young, amazing, I like to call them, everybody's calling them millennials, but I like to call them phenomenals. They're really blowing my mind with all the new creative ways they were doing things. I was like, this is how I do it, and this is the process. And they would do it in a totally different way that was 10 times more efficient and awesome. So I called them phenomenals. But I wanted them to be able to take the love and care and, just all the energy that they had for each other out beyond our walls. I didn't want it to be like this cool culture that we created where everybody's helping everybody and it's based on love and kindness. I didn't want that to stay. So my heart was I want you guys to take this care out into the world. And if you think about the Jim Henson quote, I think some of you have mentioned it in some of the conversations we've had, it's my hope is to leave the world a little better for having been here, right? And that was my impact on the outset, was my first audience was I exist to help people. The audience was channel sales and marketing managers at manufacturer brands. That's my core audience. That's who I am. That's who I love. But then what I come to learn was my second audience that I didn't even think about that I would ever have is a whole team of now hundreds of people that are fresh out of college talent, or in many cases, we have some employees that have been with us since high school. And now it's helping them really kind of hone their skill set, identify their value, and then bring that value back out to the world. And that was
changing lives. That's what entrepreneurship is. At our core, we change lives.
Yeah.
And we also get paid for changing lives. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they get that mixed up when they feel like it's all about the money. And if you don't focus on changing lives, you're going to end up broke. Or if you only focus on your lives and you don't become profitable, you're going to end up broke. It has to be an integration. My value, my mantra, is money's an exchange of value. And I bring more value than anyone else because I make more money than anyone else. So that's what I say to myself every single morning, to reframe the value about money.
100%. The other aspect of that is there's an Einstein quote, and the Einstein quote is, try not to become a man of success, but rather a man of value, right? And that's the other lesson I'm trying to teach. I was actually going to ask you to bring up that quote about value is the exchange for money, because the intention shouldn't be, I'm going to go out, I'm going to be an entrepreneur because I want to buy a Ferrari, or I want to be rich, or I want to live in a mansion. It should be, I want to be an entrepreneur because I know I have value and I want to bring that value out to the world, and then the money comes.
Love it.
Then the money
Love it.
comes.
Love it, man. So talk to us about what your new project is. I know you're starting a podcast. tell us what the podcast is about, who the audience is, and what's the value they're going to bring.
Yeah, on the outset, again, I mentioned like my core audience is like marketers and salespeople that work at manufacturer brands. And that's what I built the company on. And my heart was, I really want to help them understand all the crazy new trends that are happening. And our landscape is changing so fast in digital anything, right? I wanted to help them like keep up. But then again, now that retail media is growing into the place of being more versatile and able to help any entrepreneur and or small business, or in our world, a big talk track is private label brands or challenger brands that are coming up against the big brands, right? My core audience is always going to be big enterprise brands and the people and marketers that work there. But now I get to bring my value down to a whole new level of a whole new audience of entrepreneurs, as well as even if you don't sell anything on Amazon, we can now help you. I get to add my value to a whole new landscape. But then I started to think about what I also really care about is, I've been on a couple different podcasts for entrepreneurialism and entrepreneurs, and I started to think about, well, there's value in helping that new entrepreneur go through a lot of the growth pains. And for me, some of those growth pains were more mental health than anything else, right? And
80% is mindset.
Right.
And most entrepreneurs that start a business, they don't have the mindset, so therefore they give up. And I love what you're doing because that message, it needs to be heard. What is the price that you have to pay in order for you to succeed? To become a company that has hundreds of employees, that does tens of millions of dollars, there's a price to pay. But the mindset has to be there in order for you to expand.
Yeah, and that's the intent of the podcast. It's let me teach you all the growth hacking tactics and strategies and all the rest, but I still want to have that component where like it's real and it gets real. And when it gets real, I want to invite many different people like yourselves, Raul, to help everybody understand like there's a journey from your own mental health standpoint. You're going to have to elevate your own mindset and maturity and all the rest. And I think those stories and my podcast, I really hope to have guest speakers that share their stories, their entrepreneurial stories. I know that in my upbringing, I've been able to surround myself or be within proximity of people who have these amazing, crazy entrepreneurial stories. And that sometimes is what I remind myself when I'm getting kicked in the teeth or what 100%, have you.
100%.
That's my I don't know, my motivation or my pick me up juice, if you want to call it, right? I just listen to story after story of any entrepreneur that's gone through it. And then that gets me fired up again. I'm like, okay, it's going to be okay. Yeah. Right. And that's what I hope to bring as well.
You realize that somebody else out there paid the price.
Yep.
And is actually living what you want to create. I'm so excited about the podcast, man. I can't wait to hear it. If you ask me to be there, man, I'll be there anytime.
Done.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. Done. So if you listen to this podcast, the one takeaway I want you to understand that there's always a price to pay for success. Things are not going to come easy to you. There's a price to pay. And if you're not willing to pay it, then you have to ask yourself, maybe I'm not committed to go all in.
Yeah.
Subscribe to the channel. Make sure you follow this man. I can't wait to hear your story even bigger. Learn it, live it, experience it. Love life. If you're ready to find the edge, go to kingscodebook.com to get the latest copy of my book, The King's Code. This book will help you find the clarity, the certainty, and the purpose that you need in order for you to lead with power. Go to kingscodebook.com and find your code to the edge now.